Hey, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. We're going to be talking about Chapter 13 from the abridged version of Sir James G. Frazer's The Golden Bough. With me, as always, Ostic from Northern India and producer Jordan, who has done, both of them have done such a fantastic job at disseminating the information that we cover here in this long form podcast. Ostic has put together a fantastic little edit of a snippet from our conversation about maypoles and cosmological connections. And Jordan has really been burning the midnight oil to make sure that we get all this information out in a timely manner. So I want to thank you both.
Yeah, of course. And I encourage everyone to go check out Ostic's channel and the video you put out. It's really awesome.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about the kings of Rome and Alba. And it's broken up into two sections. Section one is Numa and Egeria, and second two is the king of Jupiter. So just going to start us off with this opening salvo. Uh, I shall say this. Well, it's going to be covered in the opening salvo, so I'll elaborate on it a little bit. So today we'll dive into the power of archetypal symbolism, beginning with chapter 13 of the Golden Bough, which explores sacred rituals and divine kingship. We'll then examine Donald Trump as a Jupiterian archetype, embodying regal authority distinct from Apollo's solar essence. Finally, drawing on Jung's psychology of the unconscious, I'll introduce my theory that higher archetypes shape world events using the Apollo 11 moon landing as a prime example, where mythic narratives converge with human ambition. So, if you've been following along, um, something that's been really rewarding for me as we've studied the Golden Bough, um, there's this criticism out there that the Golden Bough is just like this continuous indexing of all these irrelevant rituals from the past, and though that may be interesting to some um, uh, uh, esoteric philosophers or comparative cultural mythologists or something like that, it has no real play for us. But I found, at least personally, and I'll let you two say something about this, like Kubrick, it is shaping world events. And what's been really wonderful for me is that it's giving way to all these other ideas that are downstream from it. And to my surprise, I was just looking for something to listen to on Audible. Carl Jung's The Psychology of the Unconscious is deeply, deeply informed by the Golden Bough. And I'm going to illustrate that a little bit today. But had I not studied the Golden Bough, I don't think I would have really appreciated that particular work of Jung's. And I imagine that it's in direct conversation with Freud's Totem and Taboo, which we've talked about possibly covering at some point. So I'm just going to pause there and let the two of you respond to that for a second.
Yeah, I think that's it's this subject is really relevant. Uh, I'm looking forward to discussing it with you. I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of contemporary examples, so I'm really excited for the ride.
Yeah. Jordan, anything from your end before I get into the first section?
Yeah, I don't know where I first heard this, but if you don't know your sources, you don't know your sources. And last week, Ostic, you said something about we're reading the things that Kubrick read, that Jung read, kind of going up the intellectual lineage, if you will, which is super exciting because we've explored this the entire series, but these symbols poke out everywhere constantly in pop culture, in my own lived experience day to day. So it's really fun to kind of go a few steps up the ladder and get a different perspective on it all.
Yeah. Something we haven't talked about at all, and it just occurred to me here, is that we think that James Frazer just produced this ex nihilo, that there were no influences upon him. And I think I can't believe I'm 13 chapters into this, 14, I guess, if you count the just introductory exploratory information, that I didn't even think to be like, well, who influenced Frazer and how far back does it go?
I'm going to give you some credit. We did get into it a little bit at the very, very beginning of this series, but it we probably could go deeper.
Probably could go deeper, and maybe I'll do that at some point, while I'm figuring out all the mysteries of the universe. So, and if some of this, I'm the way that I have this structured. The first half is it's a little it's a little schizo up front. I'm going to get a little schizo stuff talking about Trump and Jupiter, but if you've been following along, the really out there things I say for the end, and I think this has been really rewarding. It's really provided me a lens to interpret these earth shaping historical events. So, without further ado, if we can go to slide 196. And I thought Frazer was pretty straightforward this time. So it's I we won't have to go through all the different tables of, oh, this happened in Congo and this happened in the Native Americans. We're just talking about Diana and Jupiter and Nema and Egeria. So it's pretty straightforward. So in chapter 13 of the Golden Bough, James Frazer suggests that the early Roman kings, who are viewed as divine figures, performed sacred marriages with goddesses like Egeria or Diana in Nemai's sacred grove to ensure fertile lands and thriving families. Egeria, a water nymph linked to a prophetic spring and revered for aiding childbirth, may embody Diana, goddess of woods and waters, tying Rome's fertility to divine power. These grove rituals, paralleling Egyptian divine enactments and the Athenian queen's marriage to Dionysus, reflect a shared belief in divine human unions for survival, with modern echoes in English May Day festivals, like Nemai's King of the Wood. Roman kings likely faced perilous challenges to prove their divine role, revealing a world where myth, religion, and fertility shaped leadership. And we got down this path. I think we really started to feel good about where this is going because we spent so much time looking at the relics of ancient tree worship in modern Europe. Specifically, what was most exciting to me, where I felt like this really got cracking, is talking about May Kings and May Queens and them being the personification of vegetation spirits and these rituals and these marriages that happen on these days. And so Fraser's going to be tracing that all the way back to the kings and queens of Rome, to the foundations of Rome, even back to Egypt. So I think it's exciting to pull on this thread.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So and the image that we have on screen here, this is Angelica Kaufman's Egeria handing Numa Pompilius his shield. So apparently this was a Roman emperor who was mixed up with this water nymph. We're going to learn a little bit more about him as time goes on. Okay, so let's go. We've pretty much covered what section 1 was about. Now let's look at section 2 on slide 197. And here the schizo starts to creep in here a little bit, but not too much. It's going to be the next 3 slides that do that. So Frazer argues that the Roman king was seen as an embodiment of Jupiter, the chief god. Victorious generals and magistrates during triumphs and games wore Jupiter's costume, borrowed from his Capitoline temple, which likely mimicked the traditional attire of Roman kings. This included riding in a 4-horse chariot wearing gold embroidered purple robes, holding a laurel branch and an eagle-topped ivory scepter, and donning an oak leaf crown, with their faces painted red like Jupiter's statue. These elements, eagle, oak, and red face, symbolize Jupiter, whose sacred bird was the eagle. It's going to be so important going forward. Tree was the oak, and statue was ritually reddened. The oak crown, linked to Jupiter's Capitoline temple, built by Romulus beside a sacred oak, underscored the king's divine role, especially in triumphs ending at the temple, where kings displayed battle spoils, reinforcing their Jupiter-like status. So I've got a very famous photo of the statue of Jupiter here that was supposedly made in 1 AD. I don't think they know who made it. And then on the left, you have a statue of Augustus poised and positioned as Jupiter. And this was the first half of the 1st century BC. And you see here, you see Zeus or Jupiter's golden eagle, right? and you see how the emperor has this ball in his hand. I think this is the idea, is that he's ruler of the entire world, just as Jupiter, Zeus, is the chief god. But what the synchronicity that I want to point out here, and this has fascinated me for a long time because I've been trying to seek an explanation for Trump's reddening or orange makeup. Everybody makes a big deal about this, like the whole orange man bad thing. And so I went deep down a rabbit hole on this, maybe like in 2017. And I was like, I think it's connected to Jupiter. And I'm going to go into that a little bit, but what I couldn't resist from this is that the actual planet Jupiter supposedly has this great red spot, which is like this storm, right? Which suppose, I don't know the exact particulars, but like this, apparently the storm is like bigger than Earth, right? And Jupiter is a storm god too. But how did, you got to think about how this happened. Like the Romans were supposedly painting the statue of Jupiter's face red and their own faces red, long before the red spot of Jupiter was ever discerned. I think in like the 1600s was the first time something like a spot on the face of Jupiter was discerned from terrestrial telescopes, and then we have further confirmation from like ones that are supposedly out in space. That's a whole other issue. But what are the chances that this planet would be on its face, have this gigantic red storm, and that there is this Jupiterian worship that's going on in terrestrial matters? And it's just, I think it kind of speaks to against, I'm kind of pushing back against conspiracy, because I think that's what something everybody wants to do, that there is it's almost like we live within a gigantic soul that is coordinating these things both above and below. So I'll pause there for a second, get some commentary. Thoughts?
Uh, I really like this idea. I mean, it's a crude example, but like seeing the ball in his hand, it reminded me of The Shining, the ball that's rolled to Danny and the ball that Jack plays with. So I always wondered about the significance of the ball, why the ball? Who cares about the ball? So I thought it was a wordplay between ballroom and ball, something like that, having a ball. But yeah, this statue of Jupiter, it actually kind of fits into that idea. I mean, in the film. The other thing about what you said, like this planet being worshipped, I think because the way the ancient people they measured time, these planets they became like very important to them. So that's why maybe they started to associate them with divine powers, because that's how they measured the what's going on, how to set up their calendars. Maybe that is how it translated back to them. So what better way to remember it than to venerate this whole thing as a god, and then name the several days of the week based on these gods. That's what i
Yeah.
i inferred, like the way that.
And months too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, months.
June is named
June
after
and Juno,
Juno.
yeah, yeah. So I think they want, because the way they measured time was also very different back then. Because in Roman times, what they did not have these years, because there was no Christ before them, so they were not writing like 400 BC or something. They were like in the year of this senator and year of this king, then year of this person. So they measured the whole. They experienced time as, the way I think of it, they do not experience time as an incremental thing. They experience time as the whole republic, maybe the Roman Republic. It's static in nature. So the time is measured by who is occupying that republic at a particular time. So that's how they measure the state of being. So I think that idea of measuring time in this way presupposes the idea that you take this Roman Senate as a given, as something that will not change, as something that's maybe like permanent. So that is what intrigued me about them and their timekeeping systems, and then their struggles with time. Like with the Julian calendars and everything. I think,
Yeah, I've
yeah.
got to go. I've got to go back. I'm not some sort of expert where I can speak to exactly like the timekeeping and the calendars. I mean, I obviously like the aspect of it that jumps out to me is that there were certain festivals that were aligned with certain heavenly bodies. I don't know off the top of my head what Jupiter's were, but we see this even in modern European situations where they had um, archetypal connections to the calendar through these celebrations. Um, but the construction of the calendar is a super interesting thing. If you look at different cultures, so if in the Bible you go back and you look at like the Hebrew cultures and whatnot, they're reckoning time with the moon, and then as how and that kind of it's kind of dependent upon what they're worshiping, right? And the Romans start to develop the cult the Sol Invictus, and so they start worshiping the sun. So like you get these transitional calendars that are a mixture sometimes of solar and lunar, or purely lunar, or they cross over. How they're reckoning time is kind of depending on the religious practices and rites or whatnot. So I'd have to go back and revisit this exactly, but the calendar has changed many times. Even the calendar has changed in modern Christendom, right? Um, I think Sir Isaac Newton is an example. He was alive during the last calendar change. He was born on December 25th, and then they shifted the calendar, and then so now on the new calendar, he's born on January 4th, my birthday. So he has like two birthdays, and that December 25th birthday is going to be very important later in the discussion because it's Mithra's birthday, and there seems to be some evidence that Mithras is syncretized with Sol Invictus and also Apollo. But I'll look a little bit more into that for next time. But Jordan, I want to get Jordan's thought before we progress to the next slide.
Sure. What came to mind for me, you said you were asking or saying, there could be celebrations for Jupiter. Jupiter's cycle is much, much slower
Right.
than the moon and the sun as well. So I think this idea of the calendar is probably much more relevant when we talk about the moon as a motif throughout everything compared to Jupiter, which I believe is about every 30 years. We see it kind of go through its cycle. Um, but yeah.
Well, you guys will have to remind me to put something together on this so we can take a look at like what the differences are between our calendar and their calendar. Oh, something that I wanted to respond to that I forgot to say, unless Jordan, you want to say something else about what Ossick said about the ball and Danny. Uh, I think I think it can mean like all of these things. I think they're polyvalent. I think they have like different levels of meaning. But one that I think I picked up on is um, I remember I don't have it in front of me. Maybe Jordan wants to pull it up. You know the scene we're talking about, Jordan from The Shining. But I remember counting. There's because at his feet are all these cars and like bulldozers and things like that. They're toys. And I think I remember there being exactly 9, and it makes me wonder, and if he's wearing his Apollo sweater, and if Kubrick was trying to say something about the solar system with the the trucks and the cars going around the sun god in the Copernican model. But yeah, are there 9? Yeah, there are 9. And they're all around the yellow ball. So I think there's something he's trying to communicate about the solar system there. That's but there's a lot more, right? Like there's the pattern of the floor, right? Like Jay was it Jay Widener or whatever thinks this is like these are like the launch pads for the Saturn rockets or whatever, and he's trying to tell us something about, you know, faking the moon landing or something. I've looked at the Apollo launch sites. They don't really look hexagonal like this, but the hexagon in the cube is associated with Saturn. So I think that's important to think about what this could possibly mean.
Yeah, I wanted to add to this. You know, the way it's shot, the because what he's doing is actually arranging the cars in a certain pattern. Maybe he's playing, but what is actually happening is arranging the cars in a certain pattern over a tapestry of some other pattern. So he's trying to. I'm trying to think. I'm riffing on this. I'm thinking like
Yeah, sure, sure.
construct meaning, construct something over an already existing sort of plane of truth, a plane of permanence, and he's trying to construct something artificial. Like the way this image is shot, he looks so small and he is like an anomaly on all this like ever present carpet. It sort of, it seems like it's going to extend to infinity, and there's this small boy, he's trying to manage this world and its affairs, his little world. He's trying to control the little cars. So I'm trying to think of how, like, what it could mean, like in a
Yeah.
metaphorical sense. We're limited beings, we're trying to manage our little affairs, and there's an entire story that's going all around us that we're not even aware of, that's bigger than us. So that's what jumped out to me, like looking at this image and you pointing out the
I
solar
want to share.
difference.
Yeah, I just want to put this on the record real quick. And by the way, he has it. I think it's significant that the ball is rolled to him, I think by the twins, right? So this gets in the whole Gemini issue. If there's like this connection between the Gemini program and the Apollo program, like they pass the ball, like here, catch, it's your turn. Um, but it's interesting. I've only had like one paranormal experience in my life when I was about Danny's age, when I was like 4 years old or whatever. And it involved having a ball rolled to me. And it's really stuck out in my mind. And it was like 1984. I'd never seen The Shining. I was such a little kid, but I find that to be really interesting that ended up in this film when it had happened in my life. So it's the only ghost story I have.
You look a bit like him too in some photos
When
from that
yeah,
time.
at that
You do.
age, it's straight. And I think I'm oh no, the guy that played him is just a little bit older than me. But yeah, it's interesting. Of course, the bowl haircut was pretty popular back
I mean, it's a good
then.
haircut, and it's
Yeah.
it's kind of representative of like the sun and like the
Yeah.
what's behind you know what I mean, the golden hair boy, and then there's sun
Yeah,
coming
it's
out of his head.
it's kind of Apollonian.
And his
It's
father, his parents, they are both brunettes, like they have black hair. How could they have a
yeah.
child with blonde hair? So it's like, I don't know, people, that's the thing that stuck out to me. Why is this child blonde? Both his parents, they have black hair, jet black, by the way, not even like
Yeah.
reddish brown or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um let's go to the next slide. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate what you guys had to say here. Let's get into some crazy talk. As if we've already been doing some crazy talk, but let's get into more crazy talk. Um, and let's see, did I cover everything I wanted to cover? I mean, well, I guess the only other thing I wanted to ask is like, what do you guys think about like red spots showing up on Jupiter and them also painting the Jupiter statue red and painting their faces red? Like, it's like what's driving what here. I looked like for some amateur footage. Like I went to like on YouTube real quick to see if like some people with like P900s could actually like spot the red spot. I spent like 10 minutes on this, but it seems like people could get the lines of Jupiter from the earth, but I could not tell if people were able to actually, like, just someone going out in their backyard and could cite the red spot. So it raises an interesting question if the images that we're being presented with are, they're putting the red spot on them for some reason. I don't know, but I mean that's crazy, right? Like that there'd be red spots on Jupiter, there'd be red spots on the face of Jupiter, and they're painting. Perhaps I'm stuck on this, but
Yeah, the next slide will reveal what you actually mean. The storm. The storm
all
is
right.
coming.
The storm could be. You know what this picture represents? It's the calm before the storm. I don't have a Trump impression, but so I I mean, perhaps other people have picked up on this, but like there's something profoundly Jupiterian about Trump. So much so, I was like, oh, there's the calm before the storm, and there's the painting of the face, and And then the more I just like got into it, it's just like, oh gosh, this is like unending. And I'm pretty sure there's like more that I haven't even pointed out. So, you know, all the QAnon conspiracy people go nuts for this whole like calm before the storm thing because he's gonna like, you know, like the idea is that he's gonna set this trap for the deep state and America's gonna come back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what this is representative of. I have no idea. I mean, you know, whatever. I'm really not that interested in it. And what I'm interested in is the Jupiterian images. So, I mean, this picture up here, the top right hand corner, right? Like this is when he did. There was that whole dump truck thing that he did, like right before the election. Is I don't even know. Like the media has like reddened his face sometimes, and sometimes it's like they don't need to. Like he's literally this red and orange, and it's like it doesn't really make sense. Like everybody's talking about it. I try to think of, I went on like some forums, like, why is he doing this? And people are like, oh, he's self-conscious about how pale he is, or I don't know. Like, but I think it makes a little bit more sense in the context of the Jupiterian religion. And, there's this cover from The Economist where a lot of people think like, there are all these like esoteric and cryptic encrypted messages where they use the tarot cards, which are connected to the Trump card, and his is, I've enhanced it here. It's the Judgment card, and you can see we've already looked at the statues of Jupiter. He's posed just like Jupiter, and it's also going to be kind of interesting. It's almost like he's sitting on a throne or a toilet or something like that. That gets into something else. Okay, so he's got the Jupiterian pose here. He's got the scepter with the golden eagle on it. He's Jupiter there. And then, like around the same time that he did the whole calm before the storm thing, he supposedly had like some like relationship with a porn star named Stormy Daniels. Like I don't know. Like I don't know if like people. I don't know what people think about this, but like what are the chances of that? And then like he has all these like weird things like lightning bolts like follow him around. Like look at these like epic pictures, right? He's like getting off Air Force One and like lightning bolts just streak across the sky, or they hit his plane or something like that. And Jupiter, Florida is this major like Trump hub. He has like an estate there. I think Trump National Golf Club. Um, in Jupiter, Florida. His family lives in Jupiter, Florida, and like I don't know if you recall those boat parades, the flotillas. Like a lot of them were launched from Jupiter, Florida. And do I think this is I think there's like a spirit that's like or like an archetype that's working through reality. I don't really think like there's some conspiracy somewhere. I think it's like working through people because it's too big. And if there's more, if you want to, and then it's going to get kind of sexual. I'm not trying to make it so, but it is part of it. Jordan, if you can go to the next slide. um there's all these like weird sexual things too, like we I think last presentation we looked at we looked at Danae and Zeus, and like apparently Zeus came upon Danae in the form of a golden shower. Well, like this is like this really crude sexual act in our culture that's been rebranded, and apparently I don't follow politics, but like apparently a lot of people were saying that like Trump did this or something. So it's just wall to wall, like for years. There's just like, and there jokes and things like that about Trump being associated with the golden shower. Well, that's how he, descended upon Danae. And then like there's this whole thing about giving him like golden toilets. And what's so interesting, another word for toilet is throne, and Zeus sits upon a golden throne. And there's another example, like Trump is associated, like he has a gold guy, and his gold guy who like does, I guess, his decorating or something like that is from Jupiter, Florida. Like and if we, and maybe Jordan, if we can go to the next slide, um, there's something very Zeusian or Jupiterian about Trump when it um, comes to social media. Um, One of the things that Fraser teaches us about the emperors and their relationships to Jupiter is that there was one particular. It's debated which emperor did this, but they tried to emulate the sounds of thunder and lightning with machines, kind of like the Wizard of Oz, right? They were using technology to instill the authority and fear in people. And there was one emperor in particular. Well, I forget his name, but we'll talk about him in a second. He even thought he was more divine than Jupiter, and ironically, he got struck by lightning, and his palace ended up in the ocean. So I guess you don't ever challenge Jupiter for that role. But the way that Trump uses social media, it's almost like that technology to create thunder and lightning. And when he sends out a tweet, it's like it is kind of like a lightning strike. Now that's kind of like an analogy, but I think I've shown enough evidence here that and maybe I'm cherry picking. Maybe someone could say, "Oh, you're just picking at anything." But when you look at all of that, it's like clearly something is going on with Trump and Jupiter. So that's all I got on that. Do you guys want to weigh in on this? What do you think? This is a crazy way to look at this?
Uh, no, I really like this analogy with Jupiter because it actually fits with him, and you sh- you have because he is an archetype. He holds an archetype with himself. One other thing I really liked because you made an analogy with his tweets and tweets being like lightning. I mean, like Fraser talks about how people they formed certain sorts of religious they imbued certain religious emotions or feelings sentiments to the current technologies, like people they were in travel, so they are putting religious feelings in trees and everything. And now we are in this state of technology and all this social media is all around us, so we are kind of primed to do they we are kind of primed to do the same things with our current technology. So the way we interact with it, so it's kind of updated from the trees and rocks and mountains. It's now this social media and everything. So that's what I thought, like you picked up on that insight. So I really like that one. So it's like updated golden bow or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, nothing new under the sun. Like it just kind of repurposes itself. I thought that was wild hearing that like they were using some machines and things like that thousands of years ago to imitate thunder and lightning. And maybe it was just like the emperor had like his soldiers beat their swords on their shields or something like that. But there is some evidence that there's more um technology in the past.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you have any examples on that? Like,
Yeah, there's like I mean, it's not completely related to this. By the way, I hear like this clock sound in the background. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Um, oh, that's Ostic. But what's George, do you know this thing? It's called, I forget, I can't even pronounce it. It's like the it's like a Greek nautical device. It's like the Antikytherian mechanism or something like that. It's like this like Greek mechanical computer that they don't really know a whole lot about. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Or maybe I'll put it in the chat.
I can pull up a photo of it.
Oh, do you got it?
Yeah.
Antikytheria mechanism. I'm not. This might be completely unrelated, but you're like, this is kind of an example of like an old machine or technology that um maybe they figured it out or whatnot. Jordan, do you want to read about it? Do you want to go to the wiki and just kind of give us the rundown of it or something?
Sure. I have this BBC
Yeah,
article.
yeah. Maybe just give us a taste of it, like what it is.
Yes. A 2,000-year-old device, often referred to as the world's oldest computer, has been recreated by scientists trying to understand how it worked. The Antikythera mechanism has baffled experts since it was found on a Roman era shipwreck in Greece in 1901. It was a hand powered device thought to predict eclipses and other astronomical events,
That
but
that
only a
that's
third.
that's that's sufficient. I mean, I
Yeah,
I don't want to get in
that's
trouble
interesting.
for reading their whole article, but
Oh,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you in a rude way. But yeah, I mean, this is just one example of technology from thousands of years ago. Who knows what they used to recreate this thunder and lightning?
yeah, yeah. Here's the
People
Wikipedia for it.
call it aura farming these days. Like create an
Yeah,
aura about it. So,
or a farming. I've yet to build that into my vernacular yet. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Um, Jordan, did you want to say anything about the Trump Jupiter connection before we move on?
Oh, I mean, I'm just looking up his astrology chart, and I don't have very
Oh,
refined thoughts on it, but
I
you're
remember looking into it briefly. I didn't even have time to go, but it's like really dominated by Jupiter, isn't it?
um,
From
I'd
the
have to
little
been
bit that I
spend
saw.
I'd have to spend more time with it. Uh, I don't have the AstroGold software on this computer that makes it a little bit easier to read, but there are a lot of what is the green for them? Yeah. I mean, it's it's in conversation with a lot of stuff in Gemini. His Jupiter is in Libra, and I think I have the whole sign
Well,
houses
that's super
set for
interesting
this.
because a lot of people say that Trump has a twin, right? Like there's like red,
Interesting.
yeah, there's like red tie Trump and like blue tie Trump, and these are just like, and that's why he's like so schizophrenic. Like he'll say one thing and then contradict himself the next day. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if this is correct, he has a sun and North Node in Gemini. I think that 1, 2, 3, 4, so super interesting. Yeah.
Well, let's make a note of that. We want to look into the calendars for in ancient Rome and Greece compared to our own, and let's look into the Jupiterian astrology for Trump.
I mean,
Sure.
with regards to electricity, didn't he talk about that his like father? He was in a scientist in MIT, and he was working with
Oh
Nikola Tesla,
yeah.
and like he had
Yeah,
lightning from his hands.
that's right.
So I
Yes, yes. Like his uncle, John Trump, um, was a professor at MIT who had access to like the secret papers of Nikola Tesla. A lot of people think like that gave Trump the ability to build a time machine. And that's why there's these Ingersoll Lockwood books uh about Baron Trump and his marvelous underground adventures, which seem to be Mandela effects. No one was talking about him before 2015.
I mean, back in the day, not back in the day, 2 3 years ago, I used to like look up numbers like when people are born and when they die. So how many days there are. So there was one coincidence, I think, with Donald Trump. So it was like when Adolf Hitler was born. So and to when Trump was re-elected. So there was like some 6,666 days, something like that. So I'll update on that. I had a whole list of these things. So there was a lot of things going on. I mean, even I don't want to say something very controversial here. So there was another
Oh
thing that
no, like I haven't done that already. I just said Trump has a twin.
I mean, even the presidential oaths in US, they're taken on the date of 19th of January, I think, basically, after every 4 years. Is it so?
I don't know if it's the same day every year. I'm sure it has
Hello?
fallen on that date. I think it I think it may fluctuate or hover, but I'd have to look it up unless Jordan wants to look it up. But yeah, there's all sorts of things. The gematria stuff. I the gematria calendar stuff, like, I'm interested in it. Clearly, I've engaged in it in certain places. I think it's a real fine line between my discernment tells me like that sometimes like it can really yield fruitful results, but then I see people who just obsess over the gematria and the date stuff and like never break out of it. It's just like it just becomes like strings of code, and it's kind of like an intellectual exercise, and it becomes a lot of number crunching. And I'm not sure how fruitful it really is. That's why I'm like trying to like do all this
I
Jung
mean,
mythological stuff.
yeah, that's the same reason I turned to it as well, because I was really into all that gematria stuff because there were very freaky coincidences. So I was like, how could this be true? There was one thing before the election, I think of Donald Trump. So before the election of November 5th. So when he was there was an assassination attempt made at him that he
Right.
barely escaped. So,
Right.
so the day it happened on 13th of July, I think, on 2024, and from that day till 5th of September, there were 3 months, 3 days, and like 3 weeks. So there's like
Yeah.
these kind of things they happen every day. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, he's gonna win it. So then he actually won the election. So I told a lot of my friends about it. So they
You
said,
know
"What?
how you know how I knew he was going to win?
How?"
Jordan, a squirrel ran across the stage, and about the same time, a an elephant named Kamala was euthanized in the DC Zoo. That's I look at animal symbolism. That pretty much that's where I get my ability to predict the future. And the squirrel is like a trickster archetype.
That's it. That's interesting. This a lot of
Yeah.
things are happening. I don't know who's doing this. I'm like, who is
I think it's
playing?
God. I think it's God or what or the universe.
It's very
So,
freaky things.
yeah.
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 I have 2 points.
Sure.
Also very interesting bringing up the inauguration dates. More recently, and really going back to the late 30s, it's typically January 20th or 21st. It used to be a little bit later in the spring, which is just interesting to me, like, talking about the calendar shifting
Yeah.
and how we've shifted, like, from spring to being kind of the new start to January being the new start, but maybe I'm reading a little too deeply in it. And talking about the gematria, I think it's very real, and it takes me back to kind of my philosophy of science days and Thomas Kuhn and
Yeah.
all of those people. And what was really impressed upon me by my mentors is the importance of weaving together qualitative and quantitative analysis and data points so that we have a fuller picture and we don't get like overly swept up in one or the other, and how quantitative analysis is really only as good as its context and the theory that we can wrap around it to really make sense of it. And I think to me, that's where sometimes I get lost in the gematria sauce, or can pretty much find a way to shoehorn any angle that I have in my head through the numbers. Though I do think there's a real art and science to it.
I think so too. I didn't mean to like to disparage people who do the gematria stuff. It's just, and I've been there. You should see like I mean, I think I bring it out every once in a while. I've got like pages and pages and pages of date synchronicities, and I bring them out every once in a while. But then I realize like people would go, "What does it mean?" I'd be like, "I don't know." I was like, "I got to go deeper." So yeah, I'm all right. So if we can go to the next slide, Jordan. So um, this was I as I was preparing to do this presentation today, and real I've been focusing on Jupiter so much. Even reviewing stuff today, like I had a synchron. I get these like personally tailored headlines primarily from I get them from really three sources these days. And this sounds totally unhinged. I shouldn't say this, but it's from the New York Post, Apple news updates and my Weather Channel app. And I got this one while I was working on this slide while it was happening, where one bolt of lightning stretched across multiple states. And then I like Googled it, and like apparently like there was this lightning flash in like 2017 that went 515 miles, and it's the longest lightning flash in terms of distance. It traveled like 515 miles in like 7.2 seconds or something like that, right? And they decided 8 years later that, okay, this is definitely the new record holder. I'd never heard of this, but it's just like right now we're going to determine that the longest lightning flash, and of course the lightning bolt is connected to Zeus, to Jupiter. So is this the biggest synchronicity I've ever had? No, but it's one for me nonetheless. Like, why is this making the news now in the past 48 hours or even this morning? What I have here in I have this is the Alban Hills by Lewis Gurlitt, and I also here on the left hand side, because I'm not really a classicist. I don't know a lot about Roman prehistory or how it got started or whatever, but we have the line of descent from or how Rome got started, where Romulus and Remus came from. So I'm just going to read this, and we'll talk a little bit about that if I can get my notes to pull up here. So Frazer argues that Alba Longa's kings from the Silvi Wood dynasty and ancestors of Rome's founders emulated Latian Jupiter, the sky, thunder, and oak god, much like Roman kings. Adorned with oak leaf crowns, as noted in Virgil's Aeneid, they embodied Jupiter, with their ancestor Latinus said to have become the god after vanishing. One king, likely, and this is the one I was talking about earlier, who tried to be more superior to Jupiter. This king, there's some debate, but they think it might be Amulius Silvius, claimed divine supremacy over Jupiter using machines, possibly bronze sheets or mirrors, to mimic thunder and lightning, and having soldiers clash swords against shields to drown out real thunder, only to be struck by a thunderbolt. His palace submerged in the Alban Lake with ruins visible in calm waters. As the Latin League's religious and political center until Rome's rise, Alba hosted an open-air oak grove sanctuary on the Alban Mount, ideal for Jupiter Laertius, with a wall likely built by Tarquin the Proud for gatherings. These kings performed rainmaking rituals like Rome's use of a sacred stone for Jupiter Elysius to ensure fertility, a practice later seen in Numa's lightning rituals. I think I talked about this Jupiter stone I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 times ago, but and I tried to find images of it. They don't have anything, which is like kind of crazy that there's not been all artistic renditions of this done or readily available. But yeah, that's apparently this is where the Roman emperors got the idea to worship Jupiter.
I mean, coincidentally, I was reading about this lineage of kings and who were
Yeah.
Romulus and Remus. I mean, I was very surprised to find out that Brutus of Britain, who he founded the, the kingdom of Britain first, earlier, the 400 years earlier than Rome, Remus and Romulus. So that was interesting to me. So like, so they are supposedly the descendants of the king Aeneas, like the Virgil's Aeneid. I don't know if this is an actual thing. It could be a myth that we that's an ancient tale, then and we are the descendants.
Maybe so. Hold on, I'm gonna try to help Luke. I'll be right back.
So it's kicking me off, but keeping Jordan on.
Wants to
I feel
silence you.
Yeah, I feel kind of targeted. This never happens. It's happened twice during these things. It happened 2 sessions ago, and now it's happening again. What do you think's happening here, Jordan?
Definitely psychic interference. I think Ostick is on the money.
You know,
We press on. I don't know what exactly you were saying, but after you stepped away, Ostick, you were starting to share a little bit about how Romulus and Remus, am I saying that right, were on your radar recently.
I mean, I was simply studying them because there was a kind of a schizo post on Twitter I came across, and they were saying that the Star of David in Israel's flag is actually referring to Nimrod and something like that. Do you know about that? I don't know. It's a very cursory glance, so I was thinking about it, and then it talked about how Britain was formed by the same guy who formed Rome. So the Britain is they were trying to argue that Britain was formed by a Roman general or something like that, Roman king. So they are in the same line, and Britain is actually older than Rome itself. So like the city of London was actually found by sort of an ancestor of Remus and Romulus. So that was interesting to me because they were trying to argue about like Britain being behind everything, everything that's wrong. They're behind Israel and everything. Yeah, so that was on my radar. That's
that's a that's a it's a deep rabbit hole.
yeah, that's a deep rabbit
I
hole.
couldn't possibly speak intelligently to it.
Yeah, they
I mean,
were.
I know a little bit about what they're talking about, but yeah, probably outside the scope of what we're doing here.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so Frazer argues that Alba Longa's kings from the Silvi Wood dynasty and ancestors of Rome's founders emulated Latian Jupiter, the sky, thunder, and oak god, much like Roman kings. Adorned with oak leaf crowns, as noted in Virgil's Aeneid, they embodied Jupiter, with their ancestor Latinus, said to have become the god after vanishing. One king, likely Amulius Silvius, claimed divine supremacy over Jupiter, using machines, possibly bronze sheets or mirrors, to mimic thunder and lightning and having soldiers clash swords against shields to drown out real thunder, only to be struck by a thunderbolt. His palace submerged in the Alban Lake with ruins visible in calm waters. As the Latin League's religious and political center until Rome's rise, Alba hosted an open air oak grove sanctuary on the Alban Mount, ideal for Jupiter Latirius, with a wall likely built by Tarquin the Proud for gatherings. These kings performed rainmaking rituals, like Rome's use of a sacred stone for Jupiter Eleusis, to ensure fertility, a practice later seen in Numa's lightning rituals. So, I mean, we've covered a lot of this already. The only thing that if I outside of what I already mentioned about the synchronicities with the Weather Channel and this lightning bolt they just came out today saying that it'd been confirmed it's the largest lightning flash ever. Let us just say, like, I don't know, I don't interact with classicists. I have no idea if they even find this interesting that the man who said that he was greater than Jupiter and was trying, like, if the clouds and if the sky started thundering and lightning, he would drown it out with his own technology, gets killed by a lightning bolt and his palace thrown into a lake. So like do like academic secular people just go, oh, that's a weird thing that happened, moving on, let's go to a protest? Like, what are we doing here? Like, the guy who tried to take Jupiter's throne ultimately ends up dying by an implement of Jupiter. Like, why did I just find out about this doing the Golden Bough? Unless this is like purely apocryphal and like doesn't really have good sources. But then it's like, if that's not a good source, what is a good source when doing this type of history, and like what's in and what's out? Like, are we just going to say anything that seems like vaguely synchronistic or supernatural is automatically out because it conflicts with a materialistic worldview? Like, what are we doing here?
I think they
Clearly, you're
focus a lot on archaeological evidence. That's what they want to kind of the scientific method
But the
basically.
but the archaeological evidence sucks too.
Yeah, it's
It's not good. There's a lot of stuff like 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 I was I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but like where it's, I was told like for a long time that the Trojan War wasn't real or Troy wasn't real, and now then they find something that it is real. It's
Yeah, it's a.
like what are we doing?
I mean, the word you used, apocryphal. That's a good word. I think they had this kind of simulation in their mind. So this construct, they might have like the Trojan War could be an amalgamation of a lot of different kind of warfares, and that's the story they started to tell about what happened to them, because maybe they did not keep records because the war destroyed it, or because those records, those people became irrelevant later on. So it could be kind of a folk tale of some sort. But there's a lesson in that. I mean, there's a lesson in that story about not being bigger than Jupiter. There's a lesson in humility. You should not take pride. If you take pride, you'll be shut down. So maybe it they started to use that visual. They might have been able to see the ruins. So they started to tell a story about how these ruins came about. Okay, so they might have known about this person being Jupiter. I think the exact details about what actually transpired there might differ, but I think there's a lesson in there. So that it's I think 60% close to what actually happened. The hubris took over or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Jordan, do you have anything before we go to slide 202?
I think we're good to keep going.
So let me get my pull it up here. So Frazer posits that Roman kings, as embodiments of Jupiter, the sky, and oak god, enacted sacred marriages to ensure fertility, mirroring Greek rituals of Zeus and Hera. In early Rome, the king, as Jupiter's representative, likely played the divine bridegroom, with the queen as Juno, similar to Egyptian royals portraying deities or the Athenian queen wedding Dionysus. Under the Republic, though, this ritual may have involved the Flamen Dialis, Jupiter's priest and living embodiment, and his wife, the Flaminica. I hope I'm saying that correctly, or divine images. The legend of Numa Pompilius and Egeria, an oak nymph, reflects this, with their sacred grove union symbolizing a fertility rite akin to ancient European tree god marriages, predating Athenian practices and persisting in modern May Day celebrations. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the idea here is that the evidence is pointing to that the emperor and his wife would act this out, and eventually it got passed on to the priest of Jupiter and his wife, or an image to do this fertility ritual. And the Roman priest was called a flamen. So I thought that was interesting. And the picture on the left, we have Jean Claude Nagian's Numa consulting the nymph Egeria. So just interesting. And I think this might conclude the what Frazer has to say. And I'm going to get into some crazy stuff that builds on what we talked about last time. So, before I get into the my area of hyperfixation, do you guys want to say anything about this?
I mean, what what is actually a nymph, basically?
Jordan might be able to speak more to that than I can, but at least it's I mean, in the context that we're interested in the Nemai's Grove, she's like a water nymph, which I think is I think is kind of like a fairy, but maybe that's she doesn't really look like a fairy as I understand it. What Jordan? What would you say a nymph is?
Mm, they are nature spirits, but my understanding is they are not like the like in some mythology, the beings are kind of the nature itself, if that makes sense. That's not necessarily the case here, but they are deeply connected to specific aspects of nature. So you might have a nymph of the wood, or we have stories of a nymph turning into a tree. I know that's a really big story that's super important. You have nymphs of the water, which one could argue might bleed into mermaids. So they're these beings that might be interdimensional or operating on a dimension that is not quite the dimension that most of the people we know are presiding in on the earth plane. I hope that helps. They're not
Maybe.
they're not
I mean, I
necessarily they feel distinct from the Fae, at least in but but there's some similarities.
at least with Egeria on Wikipedia, I'm looking at here, they call her a nymph. Sometimes they call her a minor goddess. So her and in the way that the nymph, at least the brief look at the resources I just did right now, like it seems like they present themselves as beautiful maidens, so they don't exactly present themselves like a fairy would. So this would kind of put them more in the category of a minor goddess. I
Yes, and, like,
does that help?
along
I'm not sure.
well, and in the vein of a goddess, they often have powers, right? They could have powers associated with the forest. They could have powers associated with water.
And hers was childbirth. Like a lot of people venerated her for that reason. Procreation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert, and
Yeah.
you could categorize these things as different things. I think fairies encapsulate a lot more variety. Like fae as a category has much more variety within it. Nymph is a much more narrow, from my understanding, like description of a type of spirit being.
That works for me for right now. All right. Should we go to the next slide? Okay. All right. So now we're getting into what I'm all about. Okay. I think for those who've been following along, I'm sort of developing this theory that it's not that they're just archetypes, though that, that seems to be happening. Obviously, in the case of Donald Trump, he seems to be some sort of avatar for Jupiter, whatever that means. I've As we've gone deep into the study, if you go back and watch previous episodes, there's like whole narratives that seemingly are connected to these world historical events. I like the Trinity test seems to be a recapitulation of the Garden of Eden story. I feel like that's all there, and it's not a stretch. And I think I pretty effectively communicated that there's some sort of cosmic consciousness or cosmic conception ritual that's going on with the Apollo missions when we view Apollo and Artemis being sublimated into perhaps the Virgin Mary and Jesus Christ, and it's a whole thing. We looked at the passage Revelation 12, et cetera, et cetera. And so I want to build on that a little bit more and again push back against this idea that there is some man-made conspiracy that is making all of these things happen. And I thought I would start with that by looking at this character right here. So this is Abraham Silverstein. He was a very important figure at NASA in the 50s and 60s. He's the responsible for naming the Apollo missions. And he has his reasons for why he did that. And I think unbeknownst to him, he was kind of predestined to do this. And Jung has this concept called the compulsion of the name, where individuals have a destiny that their name communicates. Like you could break down my name, and in some way, I think probably doing this work in some way, I'm probably really fulfilling what I meant to do.
I think so.
Um, yeah. Uh, Let me get back to the slide here. I'll just kind of read what in short, this is what Jung says, and I think I've already accurately said this, but Carl Jung's concept that the compulsion of the name posits that a person's name can unconsciously influence their life path, choices, or destiny. I could go into more of it, but so then you start to think about the man who named Apollo. His name is Abraham Silverstein. Well, what does Abraham mean? Abraham means the father of a nation or a father of a multitude. And what does Silverstein mean? Silver stone, right? And how fitting is it that the man who chooses the Apollo mission's name is the father of something, right? This like that's going to plant its flag and in a sense kind of establish its territory, although that's a whole other issue. And his last name is Silverstone when the moon itself, at least on the heliocentric understanding of reality, is known to be a silver stone in the sky, right? And perhaps you can think I'm reaching, but I think this accurately pushes back against the idea that there's like some group of people that are pulling the strings, but maybe not. And I wanted to share a quote that Ostick passed on to me, and I think I've made the case for this elsewhere. I think Kubrick picked up on this, that that the reality is dynamic and that we can kind of lean into it and be in conversation with it. Um, Ostick, would you like to read the quote that you shared with me from this interview that he did with I believe it was the New York Times, called "Kubrick Tells What Makes Clockwork Orange Tick"?
He says 2001 would give a little insight into my metaphysical interests. He explains, I'd be very surprised if the universe wasn't full of an intelligence of an order that to us would seem godlike. I find it very exciting to have a semi logical belief that there's a great deal to the universe we don't understand, and that there is an intelligence of an incredible magnitude outside the earth. It's something I've become more and more interested in, and I find it very exciting and satisfying hope.
Yeah.
Kubrick tells, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's necessarily talking about what I'm talking about here, but I think given how deeply he read Jung, and I think he probably is maybe referencing this. And it's not so much like there's going to be like beings on Venus or something like that, but perhaps there is some pantheistic or panentheistic sort of view that is archetypal in nature that's affecting the way that certain people come on to the world stage. Um, I I just want to open. A lot of people think that like Kubrick is not religious at all, but when Ostick shared this with me, it's like it's very clear that he's open to a type of spirituality that perhaps goes beyond, ironically, the Abrahamic understanding of what that is. Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us maybe weave around this phrase religious and like shy away from different labels for different reasons because maybe our perspective doesn't match right in with the box that other people kind of perceive what that box means. But it is hard for me to believe that he doesn't see some of the things that we've been picking up on. It would really be surprising to me to come into contact with his mind and be able to validate or pressure test a lot of the things that we've been talking about. And it would shock me if I found out that he didn't think any of this stuff was real. And obviously, a lot of the things we look at are getting into the metaphysical nature of things. I guess
Yeah,
that's
I
my
mean,
take.
if you're going to like start down this path where like, oh, Kubrick did this and Kubrick did that, like, are you gonna say that Kubrick is responsible for appointing this man to the proto organizations of the space program, like the early iterations of NASA, and that like Kubrick as like a casting director chose a man named Abraham Silverstein to pull all of this off or to play a role in all of this. I mean, Kubrick would have been like 30 some years old, you know? And then you're starting to like get into this position where you're saying like Kubrick's like a time traveler or like some sort of eternal being or something like that, like a god that's walking amongst us. And that doesn't seem to match. Like it doesn't really seem to be like an like a realistic theory that you can go with here. Are you going to say like there's like Satan is somewhere on Earth, like picking out these people to put on this show for us? I don't know. I mean, it's like, I mean, Jordan herself, like I pointed out what Jordan's name means, and she ended up being in a career that matches her name. And I feel like that fits with Jung's theory about predestination being connected to our names.
Uh, yeah, that's maybe, yeah.
Austin,
It's-
do you know do you know what your name means?
yeah, it means believer in God, or a believer in Vedic traditions. My full name means the person who has studied all the Vedas. I mean,
Are you have you studied all the Vedas? Do you think you will
no,
study all the? I don't even
I
know what
will,
it
I
means to
will, I
study all
will
the
when I
Vedas.
get old. I'll try to justify my name. I mean, I was even born on 9th of October. So I started thinking like, oh, John Lennon was born on 9th of October. So I started wearing glasses like him. Back then, yes, yeah, I was,
That's funny.
yeah, that's funny. I used
Yeah,
to do a
it
lot
is.
of these number games back then. Now I don't do them. Now I'm like focus on the work. Don't think
Yeah.
like this. I mean,
I mean, you could, right? Like, you could be like, you could do this. You could like, look, Abraham Silverstein dies in the year 2001. Like, then we could go off this whole thing. See, like he's connected to 2001: Space Odyssey. But that seems to not be appropriate.
one aside, I like the idea that I don't know if you put double quotes around it that he was not a believer in Abrahamic religion. I thought it was a great pun. Like he does not
Yeah,
believe in Abrahamic religions because he's the pastor of that church of. And other thing that I think, since he was studying the hero of a thousand faces, and he was in contact with
yeah,
Arthur C. Clarke, and Arthur C.
yeah.
Clarke was in contact with a lot of religions around maybe the Indian subcontinent because he was living in Sri Lanka,
Right.
and he was doing a lot of other sad things, but like he was in connect.
Allegedly, allegedly.
I mean, I think he 14, I think 14, 15, I think he was doing. So,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't
so,
know.
so he was in contact with the local religions of here. So I think because the next book he wrote, it actually referenced god of Hindu mythology. So I kind of think that
Oh, is
Arthur
that
C.
Rama?
Yeah,
Rendezvous
Rama,
with
tryst with the
Rama?
Rama, yeah. So the ship was named after this god of ours. So I really like that idea because I thought he might be about his religious beliefs. I think even the star child at the end, he is like enclosed in an egg. I think I yesterday posted about it, like tangentially. So there's a thing in Hinduism that the whole world was born out of an egg, like it was
Right.
floating in a cosmic ocean and the cosmic egg broke open, and then this god of creator god, and then from him came the destroyer god. So I think maybe he's referencing that because, and even the word, I don't know, I don't want to get into that because it is me projecting onto the film, because after a lot of studying, because the exchange between Hal and David Bowman. So what Hal said, Hal never called him David. He calls him Dave all the time. And like,
Does yeah.
if you take the word Dave and like phonetically translate it into Hindi, it's called Dev, and Dev means God. So he's always the way I interpreted the film sometimes, like he's trying to get in to somewhere, and like Hal is kind of making him realize that he's actually God, so he should realize that. And he said, Dave, this conversation serves no purpose
Yeah.
any longer, goodbye.
Yeah.
Then he has to take a decision to transcend the situation.
Right.
That's a reading, that's a strange reading that I did from my perspective. I thought like he might be into all these religions back then in 60s, because
Well, I think,
Hinduism
yeah, I
was
think it's completely
in vogue back then. All these sitar was coming in. Beatles are bringing Indian musicians and everything. So it was in vogue
Yeah.
back then.
I think it's incredibly important to point that out. I mean, I also think though David might be a reference to King David in
Yeah,
the
it
Bible as
is. It is
well.
a reference to
Yeah.
King David. I mean, there's also a thing in Twin Peaks, I think. I mean, if you take the if you take the name David and take it back to its Hebrew origin, it's called Dodd. So means it's from a word Dodd. It traveled down to become David. But then if
Yeah.
you put a mirror to the word Dodd, it becomes Bob. So what is Bob? Dodd means
Yeah.
beloved, and if you put a mirror to it, it's become Bob. So I try to connect it to Twin Peaks because there's a lot of mirror motifs in Twin Peaks, and then the
Oh yeah.
villain is called Bob. It's a
Yeah.
strange name, but just Bob. And
Yeah.
so in the mirror, it's called Dodd. So he's the opposite of beloved. Is the opposite of blessed. And David
That's how
Lynch
you
was
have to.
also into Hindu mythology. He
Yeah.
was he's actually a
And
Hindu, I think.
trans.
So
Yeah,
it's
and
a
transcendental meditation and whatnot.
yeah, it's a very weird thing. It's
Yeah.
weird to put my hand around it.
Yeah. It is. It is tough to do this. All right. Next slide. So yeah, I mean, this is building off of the whole point I was trying to make last time that there seems to be some sort of cosmic conception going on with the Apollo missions. And not to get too crude about it, I mean, I think we kind of have to think that there are sexual elements. I mean, we talked about the sexual elements involved in the, Apollo being the solar deity associated with the phallus that is impregnating the receptive deity of the lunar body, right? And there's and everything that's implicated in that. Something that might be like a little double entendre involved in this is the prevalence of semen as a bodily fluid in regards to all of this, right? And I think there's like kind of the case to be made that um, that the astronauts themselves might be have this naval slash semen SEA and also then like kind of the bodily fluid connection. A lot of the astronauts, there were a number of the astronauts that were actually involved in the Navy, like Neil Armstrong was. But and I could talk about a bunch of different aspects of this. I mean, they named their ships after nautical ships like the Columbia and the Odyssey. The Odyssey, that's a whole other connection. They even were briefly seamen, naval people, like when they do the splashdown in the Columbia and all the other CSMs. They also used a lot of cosmic navigation. They were like mariners. They were using the stars to guide them. But it's really contained within the name itself. Astronaut, when you break it down etymologically, actually means star sailor. Astro is star, not means sailor. So they are seamen in this weird way, right? And then they land in the sea of tranquility. This is the whole thing, right? You have people like Galileo and other early astronomers that really thought there were like seas and oceans on the moon. But apparently that's been like completely repudiated. We don't actually think there are seas and oceans. These are like basaltic plains and things like that they land on. Um, but like at the same time, these are individuals that are determining what the model of the universe is. But that seems like a pretty big oopsie to me. Like we're gonna say like people like Galileo thought there were seas and oceans on the moon, but they got that wrong, but they got all the other stuff right. And the reason why they got all that other stuff right is that we've actually gone there and proven that they were right about that stuff, but wrong about the other stuff. But even you can kind of even see it in the NASA logo, which again I think is polyvalent. There's this Ouroboros serpentine symbolism with it, right? With the serpent's forked tongue and the snake eating its tail. But the way that you even have this serpent on here, it looks like a sperm. It looks like semen. So I think all those things taken together, I think it kind of adds to the case that there is some sort of mythological cosmic impregnation of the lunar body, right? And then you have these astronauts that are seamen that are then reborn as as part of this as a part of this union, right? And it sounds so crazy and so crass. I don't like talking about it, but I can't really deny what I'm seeing here. And one one thing that I picked up on from Jung's psychology of the unconscious, I included it here. And though I think as I go deeper into this lens of understanding what it was, he kind of cautions like don't beat yourself up too much if you have trouble matching it all up together. He says this from Jung's psychology of the unconscious: we take mythologic symbols much too concretely and wonder at every step about the endless contradictions. These contradictions arise only because we constantly forget that in the realm of fantasy, feeling is all. Wherever we read, therefore, well, that's not the point that I was trying to make, but the idea is like it kind of, there are different understandings of all these mythological stories and what Ovid said and what Homer said. Like they're like discrepancies. It's like kind of reading the New Testament Gospels a little bit, like what John said and what Matthew said and what Luke said, and people go, "See, there are contradictions." It 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 doesn't really matter so much. What I understand Young to be saying here is like, does it transport you into that world, that imaginative place? And I think it effectively does. So even if we're like, well, that's going to break down because that doesn't make sense and that doesn't make sense. But I think on the whole, it does. It does transport us to that place. So that's what I have for that.
Yeah, I see it, especially as we get into all the naval officers involved in the program. Yeah, I thought that was pretty
Yeah. I
fun.
mean, not all of them, but and they all have naval. You could make you can make the case they're all naval officers temporarily during the splashdown. So, and that's a whole thing too. I'm going to get into that. Like, what is the splashdown? Like, it's not just it's not just, I had to really restrain myself getting into it because there's a lot more here that I just didn't even, we're like at an hour and a half already. And I've got like 5 slides to go, but I don't think I'm going to let this go. I think this is going to be a constant fascination. Do you want to say anything, Ostic, before we go to the next one?
I mean, the way you said that it's a crass image, but I think the image of a Clockwork Orange jumped out to me. The graffitis on the wall, the ancient Roman paintings, and then they have like like made very bad symbols on the wall. So that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to mix the sacred and the profane. They're not. That's a silly idea. That was jumped to me. And the snake tongue. I never saw that. Now it's very apparent to me. It's a interesting thing. The folk
Yeah.
tongue.
And like a lot of people, I'm not trying, this is not some kind of expose, like, ooh, see, NASA's the serpent and like there's Satan and stuff like that. So I'm trying to go like this deeper archetypal meaning. It's because that's like what a lot of like truthers want to do, right? They just want to go, oh, this is all satanic, da 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 da. But there's like the fact that it's an Ouroboros is especially meaningful, and Jung has going to have a lot to say about the meaning of that Ouroboros, especially when we're trying to figure out like what is actually going on here with this archetypal narrative. Like, what is being reborn? What is being regenerated? What is the ultimate end product of this? Is it cosmic order? Is it technology? Is it fertility? Like, why is this happening? And I think that's kind of an open question still.
Now, one thing. I mean, the reason why it's happening for me, it's like it's so theatrical and it's so spectacular. So it actually gives you something concrete to measure your progress to. So it's like a big event for your whole. You were still talking about the moon landing or any of those stuff still till now because they're so spectacular. They kind of exemplify the pioneering spirit, the longing for. It's a fake dream, but like people want to believe that they at some point believe that they will colonize all the planets of the solar system, but they did not have the logistics down. There's something about this which kind of like creates a world before it and world after it. That it kinds of creates a landmark in the timeline of the world. That's what I
Yeah,
feel these events are for. They're like
certainly it
huge.
does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like it's bringing in the point I've tried to make here is it's almost like it's bringing in that higher timeline Perhaps it's higher, perhaps it's lower. It's just outside of our timeline, and bringing it into our our profane reality. It's putting us in touch with something, it seems. So anyway, I'm continue to go through it. If we can go to slide 205, Jordan.
Is that the Apollo 8?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think I've made reference to this already. And but I last time I talked about, like, it seems like something really fruitful is going to come out of trying to understand symbolically, because we briefly looked at Revelation 12 and other parts of the book of Revelation. It's like, are they talking about Apollo? Are they talking about Christ? And it seems kind of ambiguous when you start adopting this archetypal understanding of it. And I think there's reason to think that Mithras is in the mix as well, because Mithras is a god that comes out of Zoroastrianism, and we know that we're being pointed towards Zoroastrianism with Thus Spake Zarathustra. What was so interesting to me, and people have latched on to this, Apollo 8 was the first Apollo mission to orbit the moon, right? And they did this like very unusual thing on Christmas Eve. They read out like the first chapter of Genesis. And a lot of people latch onto this. They're like, oh, look, they're telling you the truth about cosmology, because Genesis 1, the first 10 lines of Genesis don't make sense with what's being presented on television, primarily because it talks about the firmament and the waters above, and that there's like this domain of the sky that can't be transgressed. But it actually turns out that December 25th, Christmas, is Mithras's birthday, right? Jesus's birthday has nothing to do with December 25th. There's a lot of people who think it's in March. A lot of people think it's in September. Even a subset of people think it's on 9/11. That's a whole other matter. But it seems like, and the fact that they read Genesis, right, that like something is started, whether it's this cosmic conception or whatever, something is being started. There is a birthday here. Something is being born on December 25th. And that just so happens to be Mithras's birthday. Now, there's not this strong synchronization with Apollo. It is primarily with Sol Invictus, the cult of the sun, with the Romans, but occasionally Apollo would get syncretized with that as well. That is my understanding of it. And here is an idol of Mithras here that I got from Roger Pierce's website. And they make a big deal. They make a big deal about this thing known as the Genesis rock, which is supposedly like the oldest moon rock ever. And it's from the crust or something. But Mithras was born from a rock. And that is super fascinating when we try to think about like this cosmic conception, like what is really being born through this ballet in the sky. So that's the point I wanted to make there. Gosh, I'm too much.
No, I think it's interesting.
What do you think, Ostic?
I got cut off when you started talking about like what Mithras was made of. Could you repeat that for a second time? I'm sorry.
Oh, Mithras came out of a rock. Mithras was just emerged from a rock, kind of like a fully formed human, with a hat and stuff. That's the Genesis story of Mithras. And I just think it's very interesting. They read the Genesis passage on Mithras's birthday, pretty much, depending where you were, what time zone, around this big rock in the sky that seems to be associated with this cosmic conception where the masculine principle is overtaking the feminine principle in the sun and the moon.
Uh, yeah, that's interesting. They're like kind of recreating the birth of Mithras, like this. Are they?
It's not the strongest part of this presentation I've made, but it's and that's the thing. It might not just be Mithras. It might also be Apollo. It might also be Christ. And what does it even mean to participate in the birth of these gods?
And
Like
is
a
it just the fractal continuing? They're
yeah,
all seemingly on this, like, same vein.
like, are we supposed to think this is just like a bunch of rich guys like having a laugh at us? This is a lot of effort to make this happen. Like that's why I think there's something. It's like the universe itself is pulling this together. Do I think the guys, like these astronauts, are trying to like knowingly trying to birth this archetypal figure? No. Like they probably thought it was a sweet thing to read this passage about the creation of the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange coincidence.
It is. And and that's why I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Like, maybe I'm seeing connections that aren't there, but it's Mithras' birthday and they're reading the book of Genesis.
What did you mention about like the masculine and feminine forces in regards to this one?
Oh, just that, that the Apollo mission associated with the Saturn rocket and the phallic nature of it, it seems to be, ultimately penetrating the lunar feminine to create some sort of cosmic conception. This is harkening back to what we talked about last time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought it was something else with Mithras. I thought, yeah.
I I'm not some expert on Mithraism, like it, but I think it's relevant that he's born on December 25th, and that Zoroastrianism seems to be a big part of what we're talking about here. And I want to one day read and do something with, Jung did a whole seminar on Nietzsche's Thus Spake Zarathustra, and that's totally part of this mystery and this puzzle. I don't know if you've had a chance to read that, and that's going to get into likely what that's going to get into is the birth of the Ubermensch.
Yeah, I never looked into it from the perspective of Zoroastrianism. That's an interesting thing. I thought it was some just random king, random guy who was trying to tell everyone what to do, how he thinks.
No,
Now I'm thinking of it in terms of, okay, it's a why did Nietzsche choose that? Maybe it's the oldest religion to him. Is it
it, that that's the
from
a lot of
Mesopotamia?
people believe, yeah, from that part of the world. I don't know if it technically is the oldest, but also the Zoroastrianism has, and Zoroastrianism is different from Mithraism. So let me point that out. But like Zoroastrianism also has a lot of apocalyptic themes that people say like Christianity derived from it. Like it seems to have like the apocalypse in Zoroastrianism is in some way reiterated in the book of Revelation. And it seems like through this study, it seems like Revelation 12 from the last book of the Bible is happening here with these Apollo missions. Whatever that means. I mean, that sounds crazy. I shouldn't even be saying this online, but that seems to be what's happening. Anyhow,
No, you're on to something. Yeah, we should look into it later.
yeah.
So,
Well, I'm going to do a close study of the book of Revelation with my friend Rachel, who I just did the thing on Jacques Vallée with, because apparently Jung in The Answer to Job and in Aeon talks about the symbolism in Revelation 12. And I'm like 100% positive that it's going to like really enrich this study so far. So why don't we go to the next slide, Jordan? Um, oh, I might have skipped over this, but when I was preparing for today, I this I've said this before, but it's clear that at least Psychology of the Unconscious by Jung, which by the way is also the early rendition of Symbols of Transformation by Jung. I think there was like 25 years that elapsed between Psychology of the Unconscious and then he reformulated it into the Symbols of Transformation. But I caught this footnote when I was listening to it earlier this week. And it said, this was really the purpose of all mysteries. They create symbolisms of death and rebirth for the practical application and education of the infantile libido. As Frazer points out, exotic and barbaric peoples have in their initiatory mysteries the same symbolism of death and resurrection, just as Apuleius says of it, the initiation of Lucius into the Isis mysteries. So um, I didn't spend too much time reviewing it. We're going a little bit long, but uh, the to elaborate on that quote, Young argues that the true purpose of ancient mystery religions like Mithraism was to transform the infantile libido, primitive psychic energy, into a higher spiritual form through death and rebirth rituals, referencing Frazer's description of fertility rites in the Golden Bough. These rituals, such as Mithras' bull slaying or Eleusinian mysteries or initiations, symbolize the surrender of instinctual desires and the emergence of a transformed psyche, aligning with Jung's Ouroboros. So, I think we could possibly understand, like, why is this happening? Is if there is some sort of initiation process going on here that's like maybe the libidinal energies of mankind are in some way being transmogrified into some spiritual higher order. Like it perhaps God or the universe or whatever knew that this was the sort of thing that needed to occur in order to progress and perfect humanity to the point that he wanted it according to his plan. And the fact that like some of us are able to pick up on this, like we're like, I don't know, like I don't want to lead anybody astray, but it's like I wonder if like we're stumbling into some higher higher mysteries that God uses to interface with reality. I don't know. I'm not good. I'm not done this before, but I mean, I'm having trouble denying what is happening here.
When you talked about projections, I think there's a project that lies ahead of us, and the
Yes.
forces that we have, it's structured in such a way that we are kind of attracted to that project in like magnets, our psyche. So, these rituals, they reinforce those connections to project us towards that future project that does not exist yet. But like it all the energies of our bodies, it's directed towards, this infantile libido. That's an interesting thing. He's bringing Freud, I think, here. So it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
we're trying to sublimate our energies into some kind of future project. I think that's what he means. Sublimation.
And and that it may be possible if we're, and I'm not saying this is what Jung says, but just going off of our previous, like our pre-air conversation about holographic reality and projections and it being dynamic or whatnot, like for those of us who can see this, like this gets into the idea of like, are we, all my Christian people are going to hate me for saying this, like, are we co-creators with God for bringing that future thing into existence? Like,
I
I shouldn't
mean,
say that.
God is within
I'm
us. I think
yeah.
Christians believe that God is within us. I think God is working through us. It's
I
kind
think
of
so.
pointing us to an idea, that because
I
that's what
think
I
God wants us to see this stuff. I think he wants us to have the wisdom to see it because why else would he put it there?
yeah, I believe so too.
Yeah. I think you know my perspective.
Well, you should feel free to share your perspective.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that energies are moving through us, and I think the role of a masterful human is to have discernment about when higher, more, source connected, God connected things are moving through us, and when less God connected things are moving through us. I don't think it's just the case that spirit, like great spirit, is working through us. I think we see that with all sorts of different ways. We're able to either become disconnected from that or be vessels for things that are maybe not so positive. So I wouldn't say like categorically like everything is always this more radiant, benevolent thing moving through us. But I don't know. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, we've got 3 slides left. Why don't we progress to the next one?
Uh,
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
yeah, to add to what Jordan said, have you seen that film called A Place in the Sun, 1951? with Montgomery
No,
Clint.
I haven't.
No.
I haven't.
I mean, the, she says about like we have like less than benevolent spirits guiding us. I mean, in that film, there's this guy who like kind of accidentally murders his um, girlfriend, but he himself does not know why he did it. He's like in a state of denial. So what I and it's implied in the film that it's because he has kind of like ambitions to become rich, to marry some other richer girl. That's why he killed her, but he's not ready to accept that. I'm kind of thinking like we are kind of governed by forces that we do not ourselves understand, that are driving us to like different actions. So I thought that that kind of ties in with the less than benevolent spirits, or like higher benevolent spirits, that we are trying motivated towards a good project.
Well, this gets into the concept of possession. And I think Jung talks about this, and I'm not some expert on it, but like going back to our conversation about Trump seems possessed by this Jupiterian archetype. And who's to say that it ends there? Who's to say I'm not possessed by some sort of archetype right now as well? I can hear Jordan laughing through the walls, but she's muted. But do you want to add something to that, Jordan?
Only you truly know what's going on within you.
I feel possessed when I have too much caffeine, which is probably the case today. All right. Yeah, I know. Drugs are bad, kids. All right. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. This is where I felt like I was having I mean, I feel like I've just been having download after download with this. Like it's really cracking open for me now. But I think last time I mentioned, to make this all kind of match, I'm trying to like, okay, who is Apollo? Who's Artemis? Who's Diana? Who's Mary? Who's Jesus? Who's Saturn? Who's Kronos? Like I kind of established that like briefly I established that like Saturn and Jupiter are involved, right, with this whole saga that we seem to be witnessing about some sort of cosmic conception, right? And I think I mentioned like the eagle being associated with Jupiter, right? And this is the thing that lands on the surface of the moon. It's not just that it's an eagle; it's a golden eagle. You can see here in the bottom right hand corner that it's wrapped in gold tinfoil. Like it's literally tinfoil. Like they say this is tinfoil, like that this thing went through space with like millimeters of foil. But so that seems to be a reference to Zeus's golden eagle. It is a golden eagle. And in addition to that, a lot of these things are held together with explosive bolts. I don't have the video here, but when the ascent stage of the lunar lander it blows apart. You may have even seen this. You can watch this on YouTube. It explodes with these explosive bolts. Well, that seems to be another reference to Jupiter or to Zeus. And similarly, we see those explosive bolts disengage the different stages of the Saturn rocket. And the full name of the Saturn rocket is the Saturn Apollo 506. So it's like a combination thing. That's going to be important for this unusual looking figure here down on the left hand side. So you've got the Saturn rocket, you've got Jupiter, perhaps in the guise of a personified eagle, which is something that happens throughout these mythological stories, is that Jupiter transforms himself into a golden eagle, like all the time. Okay. And then we have Apollo clearly in the Apollo mission. So we have three generations. We have, going back to our chart, we have Saturn, who is the father of Jupiter, and we have Jupiter, who's the father of Apollo and Artemis. Okay. And so this clearly calls to mind that the Titanomachy, the battle of the Titans. And I was thinking about it a couple nights ago, and I was like, it's not just the names, it's like the order of how this all happened, because they take the Saturn rocket, right? And it's got Zeus, it's got the golden eagle in it, right? And ultimately, the Saturn rocket breaks up into stages and is cast down to Earth, right? And then Jupiter and Apollo like overcome the limitations of the Saturn rocket. And that's like what happens in the Battle of the Titans, is that Jupiter and Apollo like team up to defeat Kronos, and he's thrust down to Earth. And it actually happens here with the secession. He goes, Jupiter, the eagle, accomplishment of Apollo, right? And that is absolutely wild to me. And I think a lot of people have pointed out like the phallic like shrine that is the Saturn rocket. It's actually interesting. This figure down here is something known as a herm, and I found this. So like another aspect of Apollo was Apollo Aegeus. I don't know, but he had these aniconic tapered pillars that are subtly phallic and Hermes overt phallic herms used as boundary markers, and they symbolize fertility and protection in Greek fertility cults, which was distinct from Saturn's agricultural and Jupiter's imperial symbolism. So a, there was a fertility cult associated with Apollo where they had these pillars with like a god's head on top of it. It was typically associated with Hermes, but occasionally Apollo. And when you look at the Saturn rocket and you realize that it's a combination of a Saturn Apollo rocket, it's almost like Saturn is the body and Apollo is the head, not unlike these fertility pillars. And I think that's just the eternal cycle working through the consciousness of people. I don't think anyone sat there and be like, oh, okay, let's make a rocket. Let's put like let's put a god in, because like, it breaks up into stages, and the part that's at the top is the part that returns. Now the other stuff is just cast into the sea. That's crazy. I can hear Jordan laughing through the walls again, but muted.
This is amazing
You got to
stuff, man.
unmute
This is
yourself,
good.
Jordan, because I want people to hear your laughter.
I'm trying to prevent mic bleed
Oh, okay.
between you and me. But yeah, I mean, I just giggle because it's amusing and it's endless. And of course, and it just keeps showing up over and over and over again. Yeah, I'm just delighted by reality.
This is really
What do
good.
you think, Ostic?
I mean, the way you described this battle of the Titans, that's a good story, man. That really fits in. I mean, because they must, the people. I mean, you're saying there's some higher power operating. I mean, even if the people they know what they're doing, if they're sending the rockets this way and they're trying to create these rituals in a way, these little battles, metaphorical battles in the sky, and then it's kind of fulfilling an ancient kind of prophecy. I really like this interpretations.
Well, the
Um,
thing I realized is that there are some people who think that the Battle of the Titans is recapitulated in Revelation 12. So if we can go to the next slide, Jordan. See, this is get crazy. It's not just like, oh, there's like aspects of like the feminine figure with like the moon at her feet and the 12 stars and initially connected to the 12 moonwalkers, right? Like there's more. There's more. So you keep reading down with Revelation 12, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. So there's a battle of the Titans here, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Well, it's exactly what happens. It's exactly what happens when Jupiter and Apollo overtake Saturn. They throw Saturn down into earth, down into Tartarus or whatever. And it's also happening in the Bible in this one particular chapter in the book of Revelation. And there's a bunch of others. It doesn't in there. I haven't even gone through the whole chapter, and I need to do it. But if you go to verse 14, look at this. And to the woman were given two wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. Right? So like they put all these moon rocks, these fragments of the lunar feminine body, right, into the ascent phase of the lunar module, the eagle, and they lift off. They bring they take her back out into space, which I guess you could call like a wilderness, because there's nothingness in space. And I'm not saying this is perfect, but the end towards the middle end of the book of Revelation, or chapter 12 of the book of Revelation, talks about the woman ascending with eagle's wings. And we have this eagle on the surface. There's more. This is just what I have. So we're talking about the book of Revelation chapter 12 playing out here, but also it sublimating or attracting other Greek stories with it. And
Yeah,
this
and
gets
I
into
had never heard anyone put all of these pieces together directly with the lunar landings and the Apollo mission. So it's quite a revelation to
it's
me.
insane. It's insane. I feel so silly talking about it, but it just keeps giving. It keeps giving.
It's mind blowing, man. It's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And there's
And
one more slide. Oh yeah, there's one
it
more
says,
slide,
and
but
half a time from the face of a serpent. What does that mean, actually?
there's a lot of debate about that. And I've looked into this. You know, I haven't had a chance to really. I'm not saying it's a theory I'm working on. It's not totally conclusive yet, but a lot of theologians think that means 3.5 years. And I don't understand how they reckon it. I'm not sure, but they think it means 3.5 years or 1,260 days. I've never really understood the math on that. And so I've got to go back and check their notes and understand how they got there. Um, so that's what they're saying about that. There's an other time sensitive issue here too. If the Titanomachy is somehow embedded in Revelation 12, the Titanomachy lasts for 10 years, the struggle between Kronos and Zeus, or Saturn and Jupiter. From my understanding, maybe some other source has it at like 12, but the Apollo missions lasted for, I guess, formally like almost 13 years. So it's not perfectly matching in terms of the time frame. And maybe as I dig more into it, it will match, or maybe it'll just be like one of those things like Jung was saying, like, it doesn't have to be this perfect thing. It's just kind of the feel. Is it transporting you to that archetypal mythological place? So,
Yeah, that's a good choice of word. It's the feel and it's transporting you. That's a
yeah,
good thing to keep in mind.
yeah, yeah. All right, one last slide. And I put this together while reviewing my notes for today. I'll just riff off the top of my head here. So, in all this, like all these mythological patterns, there's someone that's missing, right? We have Zeus, we have Kronos, we have Apollo and Artemis, but who is the mother of Apollo and Artemis? Well, the mother of Apollo and Artemis is Leto, okay? Or Latona, I think, in the Roman version. And I was just like, oh, and I didn't have a ton of time to think about this, but I'm like, where is Leto in all this? It can't be the moon, because that's Artemis and Diana. Okay, so it's not there. I can't just throw her in there. And we've got Jupiter as the eagle. We've got Saturn and Cronus as the rocket. We've got Apollo as the masculine principle from the sun. Where's Leto? And I realized there is an aspect to all this that I left out. There's the lunar lander, which is the eagle, but there's a orbiting um, ship called the Columbia. And Columbia has references to a lot of things. It references Christopher Columbus. It references the University of Columbia, which, Kubrick audited classes there. But it also references the goddess of America. America has this like secular neo mythological figure named Columbia. Columbia Pictures. That's her, right? At the start of Columbia Pictures. I think I don't know this for certain, but I think she's oftentimes associated with Lady Liberty, but don't quote me on that. I think archetypically it might be there. I'm like, okay, who is this? Who is Columbia? Thinking about it from a goddess perspective. Well, then I got to thinking about it. Well, she's oftentimes, at least in old time propaganda, she was associated with this other mythological figure that we have in America named Uncle Sam. And Uncle Sam is frequently associated with our bird, which is Zeus's alchemical bird. You can see here, this is the mascot for the 1984 Summer Olympics that were in Los Angeles. This is Sam, the Olympic mascot, which is a harkening back to both of those things. So if Uncle Sam is a personification of that Zeus energy, of that Jupiterian imagery, which I think is pretty clear that he is, I think there's reason to think that Columbia is Leto, and the orbiting craft of Columbia is the Leto element who's nurturing and provides the safe passage back to Earth. So if that's the case, I think we have the immediate relations. We have Kronos, we have Zeus, we have Apollo, Artemis, and now we have Leto / Columbia. So that's what I got. Not to mention the lander. This is a whole other issue, but I think it's the Columbia lander looks like
Mickey.
looks like Mickey Mouse here.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right,
What,
that's what I got.
what was the function
I
of
mean,
Leto, by the way? She was a nurturing
uh,
mother,
yeah. What is? I'd have to. Let
nurturing
me. Let
force.
me.
Okay.
She's nurturing. Let me pull it up real quick, or Jordan can if she wants to. Can you pull up the Wikipedia for Leto, Jordan? And I'll have, if Jordan can read if she's got it there, she can read it for us because she's got such a good voice.
Oh, thank you. In the Olympian scheme, the king of gods Zeus is the father of Leto's twins Apollo and Artemis, whom Leto conceived after her hidden beauty accidentally caught the eye of Zeus. During her pregnancy, Leto sought for a place where she could give birth to Apollo and Artemis, since Hera, the wife of Zeus in her jealousy, ordered all lands to shun her and deny her shelter. Hera is also one to have sent the monstrous serpent Python and the giant Tityos against Leto to pursue and harm her. Leto eventually found an island, Delos, that was not joined to the mainland or attached to the ocean floor. Therefore, it was not considered land or island, and she could give birth. Is this related to or the same? We looked at a painting several sessions ago.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is
That's
that
it.
what this is? Yeah.
Yep. Where she's holding on to the tree.
Right. Yes. Yes. And she
Yeah.
like cursed and turned some of the men into like frogmen.
Yeah.
Am I getting
Yeah.
that right?
And that's why there's always these tree rituals, like people would hold on to trees or whatnot, or involve trees in pregnancy, because she is this goddess of
Mm,
childbirth. Her name
right.
also means unseen. So that's kind of like makes kind of sense if like Columbia is like kind of the forgotten part of this whole equation. Like everybody talks about like Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, like, but no one really talks about Michael Collins. Like, and it's like, oh, he didn't really get to land on the moon. It's like not that important. Like, it's this. I had forgotten about it. When putting all this together, I was like, it wasn't until a few hours ago I was like, oh yeah, like the orbiter,
Yeah.
and he was giving safe, and he made the return possible. And I should say this, what Jung says in the psychology of the unconscious, like all these, yes, it's about infantile libido or whatever, like whatever that means, and psychic energy giving rise to some higher cosmic order. But it's also like about the return to the mother. Like it's all about, I think he's saying in that book, and how he reformulates it in Symbols of Transformation. I didn't have a chance to prepare it for today, but like it represents the striving to get back to that amniotic oneness with the mother. And that might be part of the reason why these rituals are continuously happening, perhaps naturally with supernatural guidance from higher timelines, is what I'm saying. is that we're all striving to get back to the mother. And then, we can go astray. There's this whole Jungian concept of the great devouring mother, which I'm not really versed in, but it could be, there's a negative aspect to this too. But that's for another installment. I mean, look, we're at 2 hours, and just to get done one, you can see if you go further in my slides, I had all these other things I was going to talk about, but I was like, no way. The return to the mother, Jung on the Ouroboros, Christ associated with fire, like that's next time. Yeah. So that's what I got. Anybody want to say something in closing?
Yeah, thanks
I
for
feel
this presentation, by
satisfied.
the way.
This all yeah. Yeah, it's been a fun week.
I'm just
I,
figuring it out, guys. I don't have the answers. I'm just going where I feel guided. I could be wrong about everything.
I mean, you did a good job for like picking out this Uncle Sam archetype because he's so ubiquitous that you don't actually think of him as an archetype anymore. You think of him as like just a
Right.
part of life, just part of language even. No, because he was actually like a constructed archetype. There was a lot of
Yeah.
work put into him. So that's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah. I don't do I think these things just naturally come out of the collective unconscious. I don't think anyone sat here and be like, okay, like we're going to have a, it probably, I don't know the history of the Uncle Sam character, like, but it probably didn't start out with the whole "I want you" for the army or whatever poster. It started out differently. Um, and apparently his name comes from his Uncle Sam. I didn't even know this. Uncle Sam comes from US, United States, Uncle Sam. So that's where I didn't even know that. Like, and I live in America. So, um, and ironically, we were talking about the Mandela effect earlier. Apparently, like on that famous poster, the "I Want You" poster, like Uncle Sam doesn't have this striped hat; it's just a white hat, and people that freaks people out because that's the image of Uncle Sam that people in America have, and they go, "Oh, this has got to be a Mandela effect." And you can see, the Sam, the Olympic eagle, he has the striped hat. Where did that come from? If it's not on the "I Want You" flat poster, so that's a whole other issue.
That's what I recall.
You remember Uncle Sam with the striped hat on the "I Want You" poster?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. But is that just like me confabulating? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think we're in God's dream, so it's okay with me. It's fine. I'm okay with like the hat changing. I've had to become okay with it. All right, let's wrap it there. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.